Hello, I'm Steph from My Driver Classic, and today I'm back in an Austin Healey 3000 Mark III. Now, I've borrowed this car from a team down in the New Forest called BG Giveaways, and essentially the whole spiel of it is you can have a go at winning a drive in this absolutely free of charge. You don't have to pay to enter or anything like that, and all the details are in the description box below. But what is it actually like to drive? Well, in today's video, I'm going to take you out for a drive, show you up close and personal, and I'm going to tell you a little bit of a history about the Austin Healey 3000. It's a really unusual car in terms of I've not seen one in absolutely ages, and most of them seem to be stateside. So it's quite a privilege to take this out today, and I'm incredibly excited to show you it. The Austin Atlantic was the car designed to wow America, but with 90% of this model, and I believe most of the models actually, going to the States, I'd wager that this Austin Healey 3000 was a far bigger hit with the Americans in a way that Austin could have only dreamed of for the lovely little 1940s Atlantic. With 17,000 of these made and less than 10% staying in the UK, I think there's a fair few more of them now because people have shipped them back, you might be forgiven for not having seen one recently. In fact, I've been led to believe that this particular example today we're testing isn't actually a British car, and it's actually American. It's actually an American car which has had the steering switched to the opposite side. Now, with this being an American car, I hunted down a brochure that would have been most appropriate for this car being sold over the water to see what we got as standard, because sometimes countries vary in what they offer as standard or offer as a bit of a usual extra. A really good example of this is Minis get aircon in Japan. I think they get it as standard as well. They also did aircon on things like Morris Minors for New Zealand, but anyway. So advertised in the brochure for this particular model was vacuum servo assisted brakes, overdrive, which I'm going to show you later on, heater and demister, wild wheels with knock-on hubs, adjustable steering column, master switch on the battery, Dunlop road speed tyres, and bizarrely windscreen washers, which I'm going to talk to you American viewers about later on. Now, I was quite surprised to see that it didn't mention the twin carbs, but if you spotted those or spot them as we go poking around under the bonnet, these do come as standard, and I believe they were updated for either the Mark II or the Mark III. Again, you see a lot of conflicting bits and pieces online, which is apparently partially why it has a lot more poke than the earlier cars, amongst other improvements, of course. It also boasts of a wraparound screen for maximum visibility, which, trust me, is very useful when you've got that hood up. Now, one of the many brochures for these says across the front, for going places, the best people choose Austin Healey. And these are the people who are clearly expecting the wind beneath their wings, because the car is advertised in some UK brochures as doing over 100 miles per hour or in excess of 100 miles per hour. And in American brochures, you see it then advertised as capable of hitting 125 miles per hour. Even your Mark I, launched in 1959, was boasting of doing 0 to 60 in 11 seconds. So by this point in production, it was under 10 seconds. I've seen various things, a little bit like that top speed, where you get 2 or 3 different figures. I've seen a couple of places put it as 9.8 seconds. So just to err on the side of caution and to cover all bases, we'll say it's under 10. The engine, by the way, is the 6-cylinder overhead valve 2,912cc engine. I'm going to talk to you about that a little bit more detail when we're sitting in the driving seat. I should also probably mention that you'll sometimes hear this referred to as the Big Healey. The reason for that is you've also had your Austin Healey Sprite. I did a test of one of these later cars earlier on in the year, so you can find that in my video listings if you want to watch it afterwards. Now, the British Motor Corporation, in my opinion, and it's a company that I very much love, slightly knocked the good fortune out the window for this car because it was replaced with the MGC rather than keeping the Austin name on a quality sporting vehicle. Now, I did think to myself, I thought, I wonder if that's because these were made at Abingdon, so were the MGs, so it was easy to keep those trained staff where they were. But anyway, it seems a bit of a shame because the Austin Healey's 3000, as we've got today, was winning competitions, it did major races, it did things like Le Mans. It had great feedback from journalists and buyers alike. And so for me, it seems slightly short-sighted to replace a well-regarded car that you've spent thousands of pounds advertising with another sports car badged as something totally different, because you're essentially trying to resell the brand back in. But hey, who am I to knock it? Because let's face it, the MGC is still a dream garage car. But for me, the 3000 is something special. So let me just show you it in a bit more detail. In a world of bloated SUVs with excess technology, isn't it just lovely to jump into something where it's a stripped back experience? We're in a lovely compact vehicle, we don't have oodles of technology with us, we have enough to keep us going, and we have enough knowledge and foresight to get a good driving experience, but we're not overwhelmed, because I tend to find modern driving experiences just overwhelm you with too much going on. So I'm rather excited to drive this today. But first of all, let me show you what we've got on offer. Well, first of all, something that caught me by surprise was the glove box. So if we come over here, you'll see that the glove box is actually quite big. I can't believe how much space we've got over there. Now, the real ethos with this is that it's simple driving with a sporting edge, essentially. And so as we come into the middle, you really see that ethos come to life. So always very stripped back. To the top, you've got your heater controls with all your adjustments there, coming down into a very simple panel, which is your lights, your panel lights, your wipers and your overdrive switch. Now I'm going to show you how the overdrive works when we go out. That is standard on both British and American vehicles. Coming down from there, you have got a speaker inbuilt. Now I will say that when they brought them to market and they had the advertising brochures, it says in there that there are provisions and essentially space for a stereo, but a stereo isn't fitted as standard. Coming in front of us here, again, that simplicity is really key in this design, and I think it's absolutely charming. So over on the left hand side, you've got a rev counter, you've got your choke, you've got your windscreen washers. Now I was talking about some of those American extras, but essentially those features that they highlighted on the American brochures, and one of those was windscreen washers. And I know that quite a few of you watch from America, so just tell me, is it not something that you had on your cars in the 1960s? Are windscreen washers really a thing? There are obviously some of the other bits like the vacuum assisted servo brakes and stuff, which I would expect them to, well, vacuum servo assisted brakes, which I would expect them to bring up, but windscreen washer, really? You let me know. And over on the right hand side, you've got a speedo. I've been told, well, it's advertised in the brochure that you can do up to 125 miles per hour in this. I did 50 earlier, and I don't really think I want to take it past 70. Over on the right hand side, you've got a split gauge there, which is oil pressure and temperature. On the far right there, you have got your fuel gauge, and that is pretty much everything that you've got. The other thing that I'll show you, and you'll have seen this a million times if you've been into older Austins, is the indicator switch. We've seen it on quite a few of the others. That's quite standard. Now in terms of your engine in this, we talked a little bit about that BMC merger, and we've talked about it in other videos as well, where Austin and Morris come together and, in my opinion, create a really powerful partnership. And you see Austin's A series and B series appearing in many Morris cars, but in this we've got the 6-cylinder 3-litre engine, which is the Morris C series, and so that's what we've got in this. So you don't always see Morris putting their engines into Austin. It's usually the Austin A series and B series stuff going into the Morris brand stuff. So anyway, essentially it's a continuation of one of the earlier Morris engines, but it sounds incredibly fresh and exciting. So when we got to the Mark III, by this point, so in the Mark II you get 136 brake horsepower, but by this point it's 150 brake. But as I say, I'm not going to be speeding around today. I'm sure you've already spotted the donkeys. They're everywhere today, there's so many of them. Right, let's go on an adventure. overdrive, including how you take it off. So you see at the moment it's switched up to normal. We're going to go into overdrive, so it's on third and fourth. So we flip it down. So it does eventually come on. And then to take it off, you flip it back to normal. And you have to put your foot fully down on the accelerator to take it off. Anyway, go for a bit more of a civilised drive there. Now for me, this Austin Healey 3000 is very my era. It's everything that very similar to everything I drive in terms of being of that period of time. So there's certain things that I forgive and that I just kind of accept as normal that you at home might try and think, that's a bit bizarre. So let me talk to you about some of them. Well, first of all, look at the steering. You notice there's a lot of play there. Well, realistically, that's very of its time. You know, you see a lot of 60s cars that are very vague on the old steering, and you can move the steering wheel around quite a lot before anything really happens. And you just kind of accept it. It's the technology of the time. But if you've never driven something of this era, you might get into this and think, gosh, that's a bit weird. Just take my word for it, that's pretty normal. But I don't mind that because I drive the Morris Minor daily. This is all very of its time for me. The other thing that might take you by surprise is the fact that synchromesh on this box is only on second, third and fourth. So first gear doesn't have synchro on it at all, which means that you can only select first. Well, there's a bit of a thing around this. So I always say to people, don't bother going into first unless you come to a complete stop, because most of the time you can set off in second anyway. But you can, if you know how to do it, double your clutch down into first. But realistically, there's no point. So those two things you might find a bit of a quirk, but really are very of the era. Now, as we drive along, in terms of how heavy the steering is, I would say, I want to compare it to something. If you've driven stuff of this era, the best comparison I can give for you is it's slightly lighter than a Morris Minor. It's really nice, easy, relaxed driving experience, and you get into it and it all makes sense relatively quickly. Now you might spot there's a lady on the road shearing a horse out the way, and you might be wondering, what on earth is going on? Well, we're down filming in the New Forest today, which means that animals are out, and I think this is such a special thing about the New Forest. Animals retain the right to roam, which means they can essentially just block up the road and do whatever they fancy, and we as humans have absolutely no right to say to them that they cannot do it. And I think that's fantastic. So this little foal here, because it's don't beep at it, for goodness sakes. I think sometimes we forget that nature was here first. People are very impatient. Don't come to the New Forest if you're going to beep at the animals. Oh, look at them. Anyway, sorry, I'm going wildly off topic. In terms of driving this is a lovely little car to drive. There's a rattle from that door, which, you know what, I'm just going to... There we go. We'll try that. That should be a bit better. Well, that's that rattle sorted. Apart from that, I'll tell you what, I will give it full marks for the fact that it doesn't have any rattles or knocks in the same way that you see from a lot of 60s vehicles. It feels very well put together. And that is something that I think Austin had in their prime, is they were known for building good quality vehicles that people really trusted in. It was a car for life, a car that you could depend on, and a name that had some gravitas. I know by the end a lot of people see Austin as, you know, a badge that carries things like Metros and Allegros and stuff like that. But way back when, Austin meant something entirely different. And this is that generation of Austin. And it's probably my favourite. This and that sort of, the era where you get things like Atlantics and your counties cars. That's your golden era of Austin. It's really nice quality, nice finish, nice build. And you feel it even today, that the fact that it's been put together so carefully and thoughtfully that it still holds together now in a really nice way. You know, and this is on hire with New Forest Classic Car Hire, and they were telling me that they do around 6,000 miles a year in it. And when they told me that, I thought, I reckon that gearbox is going to feel really vague when changing gear. But look, the gearbox is very together in a way that I just wasn't expecting. I thought it was maybe going to feel a little bit vague, but it all feels entirely spot on. If you're not used to 60 steering, as I like to call it, you might find this a bit, what on earth is going on? But other than that, I think it's a relatively easy car to jump into and learn to drive. People always talk about Morris Minors being very easy to jump into and learn in. I think this is a very easy car that if you were going to come out in it, you would find it really easy to get to grips with, even if you're only used to modern stuff. In terms of your seating position, you can adjust it quite a lot actually. It's on runners and you've got quite a lot of movement in that. Now I was reading the American brochures for these because I'm in an American car and I wanted to see what I was going to be getting, and it does advertise an adjustable steering column. I've not been able to work out how to adjust this today, but allegedly that adjusts as well, or it certainly should have done at the time. So again, just another thing that you can adjust to enhance the comfort of your driving experience. It has been fantastic taking this out today. In terms of criticisms, I think where the handbrake is positioned, which is down here by my hip, is really weird, really weird. I don't like it being there. Sorry, calamity, I just had something fly out of my handbag and fly forward there. So as I was saying, the 2+2 seating is a wee bit redundant in this, because the way that the roof line is when the roof is up, and as you can see here, we took a picture to show you, Richard, a full-size adult sitting in the back, just doesn't even have the room to sit up, let alone get his legs in the back. So really, if you are using those back seats, it is for children only. Other than that, if you're just coming out as a pair of you, or just you on your own, oh my goodness, it's absolutely lovely. I've personally really enjoyed it. I love the way it sounds, I love the way it looks, it handles really smoothly. Well, for the era anyway, I think it's absolutely charming. It's charming, it's delightful, and it puts a really big smile on your face. So it's time for me to disappear off into the beautiful New Forest, say goodbye to you and say take care, and see you next Sunday.